guys, it's Sexy Saturdays and I'm Misty Eyez here with Queens of the Week. Tonight our topic is from Katana Ray, and she wants to talk about trannies, transsexuals, transgendered people. And she's actually broken down her question into a couple parts. And first, let me explain. Drag queens, cross-dressers, transvestites, transsexuals, transgendered, they're all a part of the same community. They're all alike and they're all different. And I would say that most people, gays included, and straight people, don't even understand the difference between them. So I'll break it down real quick for you. Cross-dressers are generally straight men who wear something. It could be high heels or panties. It's usually like a lingerie or panty, an undergarment that they are very turned on and eroticized from. It's a fetish for them. That's a cross-dresser. Most cross-dressers, or stereotypically cross-dressers, would be very masculine, oftentimes with a beard, being as butch as possible because they don't want anybody to know I'm wearing panties underneath my police uniform or whatever. It's just a sexual turn-off. It's just a sexual turn-on for them to know that they're wearing panties. Most cross-dressers are, again, straight and married to women. Some wives don't even know that their husbands are cross-dressing with their panties when they're not home. Then we have the transgenders. Transgendered is of the mind. It's a mindset. It's what you think you are. Some transgendered women try to fight their transgender tendencies and they go into the military, or they go off to play football, or they go off to be as butch and masculine, and they try to prove, like, cover themselves in tattoos, running from the fact that they are secretly women, but they desperately try to be as butch and force themselves to be manly men, only to realize they can't hide from themselves. And then they realize, I am a woman trapped in the wrong body. Transgendered is of the mind. Not all transgendered women actually become transsexual. Some just live as transgendered women who cross-dress, for lack of a better term, publicly, and just be transgendered cross-dressers. Then we have transsexuals. Transsexuals are people that are actually physically transitioning their bodies into becoming the opposite sex. Transsexuals have either had plastic surgery, physical augmentation, or they've taken hormones to alter and or transition their bodies, meaning they're physically changing into the opposite sex. Silicone, implants, hormones, all define a transsexual. Not all transsexuals are transgendered. Some transsexuals, especially transsexuals that started off as drag queens, wake up as women one day thinking, why did I become a woman? I never wanted to be a woman. But they are transsexuals without being transgendered. Then there's drag queens. Drag queens are typically gay men who dress up as women for entertainment, whether it's to be beautiful or fascinating or funny or powerful. They dress up as women for shows or parties or events, or just to be funny or get a lot of attention. Some drag queens become transsexual. But they're all different. Some people can be all the above, but generally speaking, you could be a drag queen and a transsexual without being transgendered. You could be a transgender who is a drag queen, but not a transsexual. It's very confusing. But we're going to attack Katana Ray's topic about transsexuals. Now that you understand the definitions of where I'm coming from, hopefully you'll understand my answers to the questions. All right, her first question is, do you think the TS community, and I'm taking her definition of TS to mean transsexual, do you think the transsexual community is underrepresented? In the past, yes. I think that in the past, until very recently, most transgendered people, especially transgendered, and a lot of the transsexual people didn't want the trans community to be public. They didn't want to be mainstream. They didn't want the world to know they existed. They just wanted to blend in and be real women. They wanted to have real women jobs. They wanted to have real straight husband boyfriends. They really wanted to be real women and not have anybody look at them differently, even though they look different a lot of the times. Some trans women are very passable, and you would never know. And especially them, they don't want the world to know that they exist because they don't want to be found. And I respect that I understand that, and I can appreciate their thoughts on that. But I do believe that if they want transgendered awareness and the transgendered rights, the world has to know they exist. So there's shows out there, I can't remember what it was called, but there was a show about work as a drag, or I can't remember what it's called, but work as a drag or something, about these straight guys that couldn't find a job, so they got jobs as women. And I remember the trans community freaked out and in a huge outcry because they didn't want that show to exist. I think the main reason, the definition I heard was they didn't want people to know that they existed, but I think the true definition was they were misrepresented. They were straight men playing trans women. That doesn't make sense. Passing in real life as a secretary, as a woman, and I get it. I liked the show. I TiVo'd the show. It wasn't on very long, but I wanted the show to exist. I thought it was funny. Even a lot of times, coming from a public standpoint of an MC, sometimes you gotta make jokes that aren't so funny, but bring awareness to a topic that people need to know about. You know, kind of like taking you from point A to B with a roundabout C through humor or funniness. I do think overall that show brought trans awareness, and I appreciate that. I like it. Recently, we've had 3 very, 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 very visible trans women. Laverne Cox from the new Netflix series called Orange is the New Black. Oh my God, amazing show. Then we have Candace Kane, who was on the NBC Dirty Sexy Money. I think it was called Dirty Sexy Money, as Alec Baldwin's girlfriend. And then there's Carmen Carrera, who was from RuPaul's Drag Race and is now very, very out as a trans woman and going for trans rights like Victoria's Secret modeling and things like that. I think that's awesome. All 3 of these women have brought trans awareness, and I think that's awesome. I think that the trans community needs to be known. With the trans community being known, laws can change. For example, sex on your driver's license, sex on your passport. If people don't know that they exist and they don't understand what's happening, they're not going to pass laws in your favor. What about trans people getting married? Gay marriage might not be legal, but is trans marriage legal? What if you've been a woman for 20 years and you live with a man who's always been a man? Are you allowed to live with him, or are you legally still a man? Can you get married? Can you adopt children? I mean, with trans awareness, beautiful things can happen. I don't think that the trans community needs to be a secret taboo. I don't think the trans community needs to hide. So yes, I definitely think the trans community is underrepresented and misrepresented. For example, there was a movie, Trans America, with, oh my God, I can't remember her name right now. Felicity Huffman, is that her name? From Desperate Housewives? She played the tranny in Trans America. Are you kidding? You had a real woman play a transsexual on a movie about trannies. That doesn't make no damn sense to me. Why don't you pick a beautiful goddess transsexual who's also a great actress, like, who proved herself recently? Candace Kane. Laverne Cox on Orange is the New Black. There are beautiful trannies out there that are also actresses. Get one of them to play a transgendered woman. So yes, they are misrepresented on movies like Trans America. And underrepresented because so many of the girls are trying to hide. They don't want people to know that they're different. I think the second part was trans awareness. How can we be more trans aware, I think is the question. Thankfully, the gay community is obsessed with celebrity. They might not like drag queens, but they love the drag queens on RuPaul's Drag Race because they are celebrity. And with that celebrity, we have Carmen Carrera. And she's very, very, very out with her transgender awareness on 2020, on 60 Minutes, talking about how she's just a normal person who happens to be transgendered, who happens to be a transsexual. And I think that that's awesome. I do understand the world being fascinated with it, and I don't think that it's a bad thing. I don't think that the world needs to be afraid. And it's okay that they are curious and they want to understand. But I also understand, on one hand, that the trans community is afraid of all this exposure because some trans women are passing in real life as secretaries and waitresses and whatever, and with transgendered awareness, they might be outed, or they're afraid like, oh, well, come to think of it, Miss Johnson might have a Johnson. You know, and I understand that their personal journey is personal. Not all trans people are public people. Not all trans people are drag queens and live their life on stage in the public. Again, some trans people have never had a plastic surgery, never taken a hormone because they're just transgendered and they live as women with men's bodies. That's their choice. What can the GLBT community do to support the trans community? Well, right now, I think that the GLBT trans community is very supportive of the trans community. In the past, the trans community has turned their back on the GLBT community, and that makes no sense to me because why would you turn your back on the only community that fully embraces you no matter where you are? Your first hormone shot, your first wig, all the way to being full-time passable realness. The GLBT community embraces you no matter what. But a lot of times, the trans girl goes through the ugly duckling phase where she's still very manly or masculine before she softens up, before she gets comfortable in her makeup application and knows how to correctly wear a wig or a bra or whatever. There's always that phase where it's obvious she's a man in a dress. But once they become passable or comfortable in their skin, they tend to be like, well, I don't want to go to gay bars anymore because I want straight men. Obvious. I know the rules. Gay guys worship masculinity. They want no fats, no femmes, and no bottoms. Well, as a trans woman, why would you chase a gay man? They want a manly man. They don't want you. So of course you're going to go to straight bars and get straight men. Hashtag obvious. But then there are the trannies that come back around and they embrace the gay community once more because this is where they came from. Not all trans women are lesbian. Not all trans women started off as gay men. Some of them are lesbian. Started off as straight men becoming lesbians. And maybe they never officially identified with the GLBT community to begin with. But they're now lesbian. So there's always a home for them in the GLBT community. The problem is the GLBT community loves to segregate. Ugh, we don't talk to the bears. Ugh, we don't talk to the leather queens. Ugh, we don't talk to the lesbians. Ugh, the drag queens. Ugh, nobody talks to them. Of course we like to separate. And unfortunately, that's something I've been, a huge advocate for here in South Florida. We're all sucking dick. We're all born liking the same sex or whatever. Why can't we get along? As gay people, we fight for equal rights, but then we segregate in our own community, I think is bullshit. So, yes, I do think the gay community can be less prejudiced against the girls that are different, drag queens or transgendered or transsexual people. And then finally, I added this part to Katana Ray's topic. The word tranny itself. The word tranny itself has had a lot of stir in the media as a negative word. Again, some of the trans community don't want people to use the word tranny because they want to be unknown, like vampires. They're not real. Don't talk about them. They don't exist. But do they really? Who knows? Nobody's talking about them. But maybe they do exist. And if they do exist, they definitely don't want you talking about them. So there are definite members of the trans community that don't want the word tranny to be used at all because they don't want straight people to know that there is a such thing as a tranny. What is a tranny? But then again, there's so many different words of the tranny. There's tranny gender, there's tranny transgendered. But then again, there's so many definitions of the word tranny. There's tranny transgendered, there's tranny transsexual, and they're not all the same. But do I think the word tranny is a negative word? No. Do I use it? Yes. I have a show for the past in 2005, that's 9 years now, right? Called The Tranny Palace. I think the Tranny Palace is not a negative word. I think that the word tranny got such a lot of I think the word tranny got a lot of publicity when Christian Sarantino was on Project Runway and tranny was every word out of his mouth. Hey tranny, you're a tickety check tranny. What's up, you're a tranny, you know, blah 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 blah. Tranny, hey tranny, calling people that were not trannies trannies. That makes no damn sense. I don't mind them for not saying, we don't like that, because he's using it incorrectly. Calling people that aren't tranny. But if you use it correctly, I don't see anything wrong with it. It'd be like saying, oh, I don't want you to call me white girl. I don't want you to call me Caucasian. I don't want you to call me... Why? It's not a bad word. Hey, tranny. Neil Patrick Harris, I don't remember what he did, but I remember he did something that caused a lot of stir. He said the word tranny on national television, and that was like controversial. But I'm here to say tranny is not a bad word. And some transgender women, I know a couple, that don't want straight people to know that they're transgendered. They want to be passable in real life. And then there's transgender that be like, I'm a man, but I'm a goddess. So I can't imagine a tranny being offended by the word tranny. I can't imagine a tranny being offended by the word tranny. Unless you're at Kentucky Fried Chicken and you're like, hey tranny, and she's like, what the fuck are you doing? That straight man doesn't need to know I'm a tranny. Then she might be like, upset, but she can't be offended by the word. It'd be like saying, oh, don't call me an American. Heaven forbid. It's very conflicting, it's very confusing, and this video is going to be very long, isn't it? So I'm going to stop talking about it now. But in closing, 1, do you think the trans community is underrepresented? Yes. I think there are not enough trans people public about A, being trans, and B, giving a positive role model to the trans community. 2, I don't remember what the question was. Something about trans awareness. Maybe B, how do we bring more trans awareness? I guess, you know, more girls like Laverne Cox, Carmen Carrera, and Candace Cain need to be public about, yes, I am not ashamed of who and what I am. I'm a goddess. Get into it. And what can the gay community do to support trans? I guess love them even though they reject you, because a lot of times the trans girls become prodigal children and come back to the gay community. And as a whole, the gay community needs to support every member of its community, even the chubs, even the bears, even the lesbians, even the leather queens, even the twink boys. We're all a family. Let's get along. Let's love each other. And in closing, the word tranny, is it a negative word? No. Is it offensive? No. But like any word, it's how you use it. Do I use this word? Yes. Especially when talking about tranny chasers. But that's a whole nother story. That was Misty Eyez for Sexy Saturdays. Loving you, Zizi.